Hi guys, how's it going? My name is Tahir Kambata and I am a licensed paralegal in Ontario. I am on a mission to educate my peers about the laws and legislation that surround our society today. Today's video is about knowing your rights as a tenant. Full disclosure, this is not legal advice in any way, shape, or form. If you seek any legal advice, please do contact your attorney or legal representative. This is purely legal information that is available to the public that you can also search online. My goal here today is to educate you about some of those resources that are available to us. So, let's get into it. Are you a tenant in Ontario wondering about your rights? Or does it feel like sometimes renting is the wild, wild west? Can your landlord just barge into your room demanding rent? Can they evict you the day after you don't pay your rent? Nope, absolutely not. In today's video, I will break that all down for you. Who is protected under the Residential Tenancies Act? What are your rights under the Residential Tenancies Act? And what happens if those rights are not upheld? Let's dive in. Let's talk about who is protected under the Residential Tenancies Act, or the RTA for short. I've seen countless Reddit posts or threads. I've seen countless Reddit posts saying that every tenant is covered under the Residential Tenancies Act. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Residential Tenancies Act, the piece of legislation that protects tenants in Ontario, applies to most private dwellings and rentals. This includes apartments, units inside homes, privately owned homes, condominiums. But it does not apply to college dormitories, university residences, or commercial rental properties. So, if you're living in a shared rental with your landlord or staying in a college dorm, you are not protected under the RTA. It's crucial to know this distinction to avoid any confusion. I've seen a lot of my friends ask questions about, am I protected under the RTA if I share a bathroom or a kitchen with my landlord? Unfortunately, no, you are not protected under the Residential Tenancies Act. In order for the Residential Tenancies Act to apply, you must not have a shared bathroom or a kitchen with your landlord. So, what are your rights as a tenant? The protections for tenants in the Residential Tenancies Act are designed to make sure that landlords cannot take advantage of you. So, what are some of these protections? First is unfair rent increases. Second is rules surrounding eviction. Third being repayment rules and protection against harassment. The first one, the RTA ensures that landlords can't randomly increase your rent. Rent increases have to follow legal guidelines and require proper notice. There are rules for rent increases. Rent increases don't apply to everyone, and even if they do, they are very limited. So, rent increases is a protected right for tenants. Not everyone's rent can be increased arbitrarily to an unlimited amount. For example, if your unit is built or has been occupied for the first time after November 15th, 2018, then your unit is not rent protected. If your unit is rent protected, aka it has been built before or has been occupied for the first time before November 15th, 2018, a rent increase guideline is followed, and that number changes year by year. So, for example, if you signed your lease on June 1st, 2024, then the first time your rent can be increased is on June 1st, 2025. It can only be increased once every 12 months, and it can only be increased by the percentage that has been provided inside the guideline. The guideline can be viewed on ontario.ca/page residential tenancy increases. Furthermore, it also raises a question, how much notice do I get as a tenant if my rent is going to be increased? You get a 90-day notice period before your rent is increased. So, before June 1st, 2025, the 1-year anniversary of your lease, your landlord must give you a 90-day notice prior to that date in order to increase your rent. For 2025, the rent increase guideline is 2.5%. So, for example, if your rent is $1,000, then the maximum your landlord can raise your rent is $25. Part 2. There are numerous ways to end a tenancy, for a tenant and for a landlord. But it is not as simple as your landlord calling you up and saying, "Hey, I gotta get you out of here tomorrow." Nope, unfortunately that is not the case. And if the landlord does do a wrongful eviction or a bad faith eviction, then if it's an individual landlord, they can be fined up to $50,000 and a corporation can be fined up to $250,000. So it is not a small fine. It is quite the hefty one. Some evictions that can be done from the landlord are evictions for personal use, if they want to use the unit for themselves, if they want to use the unit for their family, or are selling the property to a purchaser and the purchaser will be using the unit for themselves. The landlord can also evict for renovations, such as for repairs or demolitions. A new trend in Ontario, as you may know, is renovictions. Just to evict the tenant, they make the excuse that I would like to renovate, and once the tenant has evicted, some people notice that another tenant has taken their place and they are paying a higher rent amount. This is called a bad faith eviction. This happens when a landlord claims they need the property but doesn't actually use it as stated. This is illegal and not allowed. There are penalties for landlords who do not follow this. I will cover the penalties in another video. The third protection is repayment plans and protection against harassment. If you're struggling with rent, here's something important. Landlords cannot force repayment plans on you or threaten eviction for not agreeing to one. If someone misses their payment, and if a negotiation is reached that I will pay the rent in this format or in this repayment plan, then that's okay. But the landlord cannot force one on you or cannot threaten you into agreeing into one. In fact, it's illegal under the RTA for landlords to harass or threaten tenants to make them move out. Now, if a tenant fails to pay their rent and the landlord wants to evict them, there is a process involved. And the LTB, the Landlord and Tenant Board, will consider all options before eviction. One of the biggest advantages in Ontario is the standard lease agreement. The Landlord and Tenant Board has formatted a standard lease agreement that applies to almost all private residential units. But why is this important? Because it outlines that the landlord is responsible for maintaining the unit. The landlord also cannot enter your unit arbitrarily, and the landlord cannot ban you from having or owning pets in the unit. This is important because many landlords try and write clauses into their lease which are illegal under the RTA. But using a standard form lease, it automatically ensures that no one is contracted out of the Residential Tenancies Act and all laws are abided by. Here are some of my final thoughts. Knowing your rights as a tenant is crucial. It's tough out there, but the laws in Ontario are designed to protect you. These rules ensure you're not left in the dark. If you still have questions about your rights or need more information, feel free to reach out in the comments below or message me directly. I would like to ensure that this is not legal advice and this is purely legal information that is available to the public. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This really helps. And comment down below if you really liked the video. Thanks for watching, and until next time.